Hello, I'm Langston, and I'm back on my channel, Military Election Forecasting. Today, I'm going to be talking about the 2024 Senate elections. I'm going to give you guys my prediction. Please make sure to go check out my gubernatorial prediction video. I did this a couple days ago, so make sure to go check that out as well. So, I'm going to be diving into my Senate election prediction. As you guys can see, I've already filled out all the safe states for both parties. There are some I think that could fall under likely. We could see New York, as well as New Jersey, maybe Delaware fall under 15%, as well as Mississippi, Indiana, West Virginia, or Indiana. I want to dive into two states that I put on this in a safe column I think are somewhat controversial. So Minnesota as well as Maryland. So in Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar was, underperforming her previous numbers, but as of recently, like she's been, rebounding and she's up against an extremely weak candidate. I think is gonna do horrible in the suburbs and do quite bad in the rural working class parts of Minnesota as well. So I think she will win by more than 15. In Maryland, Larry Hogan is being very overestimated. Maryland is a very, very black state, and people forget that. So for Larry Hogan to even make this like D plus 20, he needed to significantly outperform with black voters in, PG in Baltimore, which is something I seriously doubt. You have to realize in 2022, Kathy Hochul, a horrible candidate, she collapsed with Hispanic voters, with Asian American voters, with educated white voters, with Jewish voters, with, traditional Democratic constituencies. But where she did not collapse was with black voters. So with that, I do not see how Larry Hogan's going to make this very competitive. And it's very biased and delusional when you hear Republicans saying that, Larry Hogan's going to outrun Donald Trump by more than 20 points because he used to be a popular governor. But somehow a three-time incumbent, uh, John Tester's not going to outrun Kamala by 15 in Montana, right? Like, you mean to tell me that, Sherrod Brown's not going to outrun Kamala by 10, right? So you can't, so, you know, uh, Dan Osborne can outrun Kamala by 20. So if Larry Hogan can do that, why can't, these Democratic candidates do that as well? So it's very biased and, very delusional with no factual data to back up an argument as to what they're trying to say and how that's going to make sense. And also, I want to, move on to the likely states now. I'm going to move on to the likely states for Republicans. So I have Missouri as well as Florida, as well as Nebraska's main seat. So in Nebraska, I do think that, Deb Fisher, she's a quite weak candidate. She's not that known by the Nebraska electorate, but it's very hard for a Democrat to win in Nebraska. Nebraska is a left trending state. Democrats do have potential here. They already win Nebraska's second district on the presidential level quite convincingly at that. Nebraska's first district is also left trending, but Nebraska's third district is the most Republican district in the country. In Nebraska's second, I think this is where, you will see Dan Osborne do very well. Like, I think he could win Douglas by like more than 20, maybe even 25. I think that he'll probably end up flipping Sarpy, a very left trending suburban county outside of Omaha, as well as Lincoln. This is another very left trending area, trending 8 points to Democrats. So, if he really runs it up here, he can really dramatically narrow the margin because so much of Nebraska's population lives here. 30% of Nebraska's population lives in Douglas County alone. Obviously a lot lives in Sarpy. I'd say probably half of that in Lancaster. Like, look at this, the amount of votes cast in this county versus, these rural counties that have very small populations. But regardless, I still don't see a path for him. I can see him losing this by like 9 or 10, maybe 11, maybe even 7 or 8, but I don't see how he gets all the way there. Point blank, period. In Missouri, Josh Hawley's going to underperform Donald Trump in the rural areas as well as in the suburbs. He's a very extreme candidate, and that's very toxic for suburban voters, especially considering Donald Trump is probably going to perform his 2020 numbers in the suburbs of Missouri as well. So I think he only wins by like 12 or 13, in my opinion, but I still think that he's going to beat Lucas Coons quite easily. In Florida, I don't see how DNP is going to win this race. Like, Democrats in Florida are being so overrated. And when I argue something, I present a coalition that makes sense. Like, if I'm going to provide you my prediction, I need to have the data. I need to show you the trends. I need to show you the evidence to back up why I'm saying what I'm saying. And there's no evidence to suggest the Democrats can win a statewide race in Florida. They haven't won a statewide race in Florida since 2012. They don't have the numbers of Hispanic Latino voters. Yes, they might improve educated white voters, but nowhere near enough to make up for the losses they've had with Hispanic Latino voters. And yes, black turnout will be better in Florida, but it won't be enough. And that's just the facts. So unless Democrats can get back to Hillary Clinton's 2016 numbers and with and Southern Florida, they're not winning, and that's very unlikely. They're going to do better in Miami-Dade. Even in 2022, in a blue wave year, like we talk about this, for example, the main reason that Rick Scott lost his race is because of Miami-Dade. Like he only won Miami-Dade by 21. Hillary Clinton won this county by 30. So he underperformed Hillary by 9 points in this county, and that's part of the reason why he lost. So this has been a trend that's been happening for a long time. And I do think that Democrats are going to do better in a lot of areas in Florida, but it's not going to be enough to win statewide. So in my opinion, I could see this going down to be like a maybe R+2, R+3 race. But I still think that Rick Scott is favored. He knows how to win Florida. I think he's going to win here by like 5. Maybe this could be 4-3. I can see this being lean if I keep seeing things going well. But I'm going to trust in the historical trends, and I'm going to bet on Rick Scott winning this by about 5 points. Moving on to the likely states for Democrats, and we have Virginia. I'm going to give Democrats Pennsylvania, Nevada, as well as Arizona and and New Mexico as well. In New Mexico and Virginia, these are the two states I want to get out the way. New Mexico, Mark Heinrich is a pretty popular incumbent. He has a lot of appeal to Hispanic and Latino voters. Kamala's going to, win New Mexico probably by double digits. He's going to probably outperform her by a couple points because of that. In Virginia, Tim Kaine's a popular candidate. He's going to do very well in Nova. Black turnout's going to be higher in 2024, and that's going to really help him. I do want to say, a lot of people overrated Hung Kao, thought Hung Kao was a very strong candidate. And we're seeing that that's not true. Like Hung Kao is made some very right-wing populist comments, which is not popular for a state like Virginia. So the kind of rhetoric that he's running on is just not gonna work in Nova. It's not gonna work in the suburbs of Virginia. I think he's gonna lose by like 13 or 14. And he's being really gassed up by Republicans or right-wing sources, but I don't see the math for him. Like I think he's gonna, perform quite bad across the state. Point blank period. I don't see it for him. And he needs to be more careful with his rhetoric, but he's not been doing that. In Arizona, I think that, Ruben Gallego is being overestimated. And yes, polls do consistently overestimate Republicans in Arizona, but I think that this time is different. I don't see how, Ruben Gallego wins by 12, 14, 15, like some of the polls are suggesting. I could easily see it being like 6 or 7, maybe, and that's still, quite remarkable. But I don't see, the lopsided margin they're predicting. You have to realize that Maricopa, like, I could see, 7, 8 points or et cetera, which would be a very good thing for Democrats. But I still don't see, what they're actually predicting. I don't see it. Mark Kelly's able to win this county by 6. I think that, Ruben Gallego might win this by 7 or 8. Kerry Lake is a horrible, horrible candidate. But I still don't see how, they win. 26-point victory in Pima, I could see, I guess, that's significantly better than Biden's margin, 19 points only for Biden. I could see, I guess, Ruben Gallego doing that maybe a little bit better than that. I think he's going to do quite well with Hispanic voters as well, which, won't dramatically, shift Arizona to the left. But regardless, he's going to outrun Kamala with Hispanic voters. He's going to do even better than Kamala with educated white voters in the Phoenix suburbs, which is saying a lot. And I think that's going to help him win by like, 5 or 6, maybe 7. But I do think that he's being, quite substantially overrated. I don't see how he loses Maricopa by 12 for like for him to win Arizona by 12 or 14, like the polls are suggesting, or even like 9, he needs to win Maricopa by like 11, 12, 13, 14 points. I don't see that happening. I think Kerry Lake is bad. I don't think she's that bad of a candidate. In Nevada, I also think Jackie Rosen is being overestimated. Obviously, Nevada polls do have a history of underestimating Democrats, but regardless, I think this time it's overestimating Democrats. Like we have brains. Like if we see a poll that shows something that doesn't seem like it's realistic, why are we running with it? Right? Like if we see a poll that has Democrats winning North Carolina by 3 points, how? How is that going to happen? Like if we see a poll that has Donald Trump winning Michigan by 4, how is that going to happen? Like we have the ability in our brains to use data and understand coalitions and look at historical trends and see why that's not likely. And, in Nevada, I don't see how Sam Brown is going to lose this race by 10. I do think he could lose by 5 or 6. Like, he could lose Clark by like 15. He could lose Washoe by like 7 or so. And I think that could cause him to lose by like, 6 or 7, especially in a high turnout race. but I don't see how he really just gonna get blown out in this race. Like, I don't think Nevada has that much split ticketing, but I do want to say I definitely think she's favored in this race. But it's quite sad, Jackie Rosen is a pretty decent candidate, but she's not some, strong candidate. Like Catherine Cortez Master's a better candidate than her. She's more popular, she's more known than Jackie Rosen, and the fact that Republicans are struggling this much in this race does speak volumes. But I do think that, Democrats are going to win here quite convincingly. In Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick is so overrated as a candidate. Like, Bob Casey Jr. is a very strong candidate. Like, you go back to his 2022 numbers, like, he did very well in the Philadelphia suburbs. Like, he won Chester by 20, he won Montgomery by 32, he won Delaware by 32 as well. He won Bucks by 14. Like, he won Allegheny by 32 points. So, he knows how to run it up in these suburbs, and he's also going to cut the margins in these rural working class areas. And I do think his race is going to be dramatically narrower than it was last time, but I think that he's going to, run ahead of Kamala in, these working class areas. And he's also going to run ahead of her in the suburbs and cut the margins in the rural areas. And Democrats are doing quite well with turning out black voters in Philadelphia as of now. So I don't realistically see a path forward for Dave McCormick. Even in 2022, he probably would have still lost to John Fetterman. John Fetterman, won by 5. I don't see him outperforming Dr. Oz by 5. This is just a state that Republicans have really struggled in. They lost this Senate race by 5 to John Fetterman. So if they couldn't even beat someone who was dealing with a stroke, all the issues that John Fetterman had, but they expect to be a longtime incumbent like Bob Casey Jr., who's very popular. I just don't see it. I do think that Dave McCormick's running a strong campaign, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Like, we saw a lot of Democrats who run strong campaigns and they still lost. We see the same thing for Republicans in the past. I just don't see how he gets his race to being too competitive. I think he probably loses this by like 5 or 6. I could see a little bit more than that. I could see this potentially being lean, but as of now, I'm going to bet on this being like a 5 point victory for Democrats, maybe 6 points. I think Donald Trump will help Dave McCormick in the rural areas, but he's still going to dramatically outperform Donald Trump in those areas. So I don't realistically see a path for him. Moving on to the lean states for Republicans, and this gives Republicans a Senate. We have Montana as well as Texas. I do think that John Texas being underestimated in Montana. Like, the polls that have him being down by a lot in Montana have Kama losing Montana by like 23, 25, 30 and shit, which is like, that's not going to happen. Like, I do think Kamala's going to lose Montana by a lot, but it's going to be like 15, 16, 17. It's not going to be like sub dramatic margin. And that means that, John Test is going to outperform the polls that it's suggesting. I think that, he's a strong candidate for Montana. Like, he knows how to win here. He's a long time incumbent, has a lot of appeal to, a lot of these independent voters. Montana's a very libertarian, very moderate state. This state is going to pass an abortion referendum, quite convincingly. And if he's able to effectively tie himself to, making this race just about abortion, he can win. But if he can't do that, like, as of now, I still would bet on Tim Sheehy. Like, Donald Trump's gonna help Tim Sheehy a lot in the rural areas. Yes, he's gonna significantly underperform Donald Trump in these areas, but he's still, Donald Trump being on the ballot is gonna really help him. And I think that, Republicans in Montana have done an effective job of tying John Tester to prominent Democrats. And obviously, John Tester's still really popular in Montana, but I still think that, as of today, he's not favored. In Texas, I think Republicans are being overrated as well. Like, I don't see how like, people expecting Ted Cruz to just walk away. People expecting Donald Trump just to destroy Kamala Harris in his state. And the state is clearly left trending because of the suburbs. Like, you look at a place like Collin County, for example, this county went to Donald Trump by 4. You go to the 2018, this is a blue wave year. Collin went to Ted Cruz by 6. So Donald Trump underperformed Ted Cruz in Collin County. Like, that's how left trending these suburbs are. So, yeah, I'm trying to say, like, these areas are trending dramatically to the left. And there are some warning signs for Democrats in the Rio Grande Valley. Like, for example, Duval County. Like, this is a, very right trending county, but it's only 2,000 votes. Look at how many votes were cast in this county. Like, you look at Tarrant, look at how many votes, almost more than 800,000 votes cast. Like, you click here, barely even 2,000 votes casted. So, Republicans are improving in Texas, but they're improving in the areas that don't matter as much as where they're losing ground. And Colin Allred, he's from the DFW area. Like, he has outperformed, in the DFW. He's flipped a competitive district in the suburbs. He's known in the suburbs of Dallas. And if he's able to outperform Kamala, who's probably going to shift these counties to the left again, and do well in the Austin area, he's gonna, cut the margin statewide. But the problem for Democrats in Texas is not Houston, it's not Dallas. It's not Austin, it's not Dallas, it's Houston. Like Democrats are just not letting the votes sitting out of Harris County, not getting the turnout they need, and they're losing Montgomery by too much. And Montgomery, like many left trending suburban counties, is trending to the left. Democrats they shifted Montgomery 7 points to the left. Democrats will continue doing a little bit better there, but they're still losing this by over 100,000 votes. Like the Republicans net more votes out of this county than any county statewide in the country. So with that, like I don't see how Democrats overcome that. I don't see how they get the numbers in Houston they need to win statewide. San Antonio, they're making, pretty dramatic improvements on a military basis. They are struggling with Hispanic voters in the inner city, but they're being overpowered by veterans and, active service members that actually live on base like myself. But regardless, I still don't see how Texas goes to Democrats. I think that Ted Cruz wins this by like 1 to 2, maybe three on the high end. But I do think that he's being overrated. Like I think that Texas is going to be closer than people expect because of the suburban revolt against, the MAGA section of the Republican Party. Moving on to the lean states for Democrats, we have Wisconsin as well as Michigan. In Wisconsin, Eric Hobdy is really being gassed up, and I just don't see it. Tammy Baldwin is a pretty strong candidate. You have to realize Ron Johnson beat a candidate that got abandoned by the DNC by 1 point, right? And obviously, Donald Trump is going to help Eric Hobby on the ballot. Like, I think that Tammy Ball is going to lose a lot of ground in the working class areas, but not enough. Like, you have to realize that, like, is she going to win all these counties she won in 2020, 2018? Absolutely not. She's going to underperform in a lot of these counties. She's going to dramatically outperform Kamala in the working class areas. And I do think Kamala is being severely overestimated in Wisconsin. Like, she has real problems with the white working class, and she might win, but it's going to be by a lot narrower than people are expecting. And that goes for Donald Trump as well. Like I think Donald Trump has a realistic chance. Even if Donald Trump wins Wisconsin, it's going to be like by less than a point. That's not going to be able to help Tammy Baldwin lose this race. Like Eric Hobby is going to need Donald Trump to win by like 4 or 5, and that's not going to happen. Like so, I don't see a path for him. Like she's going to do a lot better in the driftless area, a lot better in the working class areas. Kamala's going to do better with black turnout in Milwaukee, and that's going to help Tammy Baldwin down ballot. The suburbs are going to trend in Tammy Baldwin's favor as well as Kamala's. So I just don't see a path for Eric Hobby in the state to be coming even closer when I think he loses by like 4 to 5. In Michigan, I do think that Alyssa Slotkin's a bad candidate for Black voters. I've been said this. Like, I think that she's going to underperform Kamala in Detroit and Flint. Like, a lot of the Black areas in Michigan, which is problematic. I think she could underperform Kamala in the suburbs, Oakland, Grand Rapids, as well as Ottawa. These are left trending counties, but they are a lot more Republican down ballot. I think she could realistically underperform Kamala in the suburbs, or maybe run even. You never know, but usually the suburbs of Michigan are more Republican down ballot. I do think she's going to do better in the working class parts of Michigan, like Macomb, Eaton, and a lot of these other working class counties, but they don't give Democrats as many votes, right? So I think she'll either run even with Kamala, maybe run a little bit behind, a little bit ahead. I think she wins by like 2 or 3, in my opinion. She should be encouraged by the numbers Democrats are getting in Detroit, but she's going to underperform Kamala in that area. Her opponent is not that bad of a candidate. He did get destroyed in the debates, but regardless, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact, and I think that he does have a lot more appeal to suburban voters than Donald Trump. But he's a lot weaker of a candidate for the working class rural parts of the state. Donald Trump is going to help him because he's going to be on the ballot. So we'll see this election. I think it's going to be closer than people expect, but I don't see a scenario where Mike Rogers is able to win this race. The last state, I'm going to give this state to Republicans. That has Republicans winning the Senate. Uh, 52 to 48, flipping 3 seats, West Virginia, Ohio, and Montana. And I want to say that in Ohio, I see it for Sherrod Brown. Like Bernie Moreno's running an awful campaign. His recent comments about older women being obsessed with abortion when they can't have abortion at their age is a horrible comment. Like, why would you say that? The abortion referendum passed in Ohio by 13. Like the kind of rhetoric, like he just like a lot of these really MAGA Republicans just lack any kind of electability. Like they just don't understand how to shut up. Like if they showed, they would be in such a better situation, but they just keep running their mouth and saying these very controversial things. But I do think that he's gonna do a lot better than Colin in the working class parts of Ohio. He's gonna cut the margin in rural areas. Sherrod Brown does not have a history of doing too well in the suburbs. Like you look at Delaware County, for example, Biden lost his county by a little bit less than 7. Sherrod Brown lost his county by 5. So he only outran Biden by 2 points here. I do think he's gonna outrun Kamala by more this election. But you get the point, like he's not that strong in the suburbs, and that's kind of a problem for him. I do think against a candidate like Bernie Moreno, he's gonna really run it up in in these suburban counties, which is gonna really help him. So, with improvement in the rural areas and the working class, it's probably gonna help him by like 3 or 4 points. Some suburban shifts are gonna help him by another 2 points. But he's still short, and that's where he's gonna need black turnout to be dramatically higher, and I just don't see that happening. Like, Democrats have a real big issue with turning out black voters in Cleveland and, and Cincinnati and, Columbus and Dayton and etcetera. Like, they're not getting numbers they need. Like, in Youngstown, for example, like, Democrats are really struggling to turn out black voters in the city of Youngstown. Like, there's no way they should be performing as bad as they're performing in Mahoning County. That's kind of an issue for Sherrod Brown. I do think Commons gonna help him a lot more than Joe Biden would have. But I don't see Democrats, getting the turnout they need. Like, the last time Democrats won Ohio federally was with Obama, and Obama was able to dramatically raise, black turnout in 2012. Like, despite him losing ground with a lot of other demographics in 2012, he did better in Cuyahoga. Like, he did better than a lot of these cities in Ohio because he was able to, raise black turnout from 2012 to 2008. And, in 2000, the poll that recently came out that had Sherrod Brown winning Ohio, this poll only had Kamala losing Ohio by 6. I don't see a scenario where Kamala loses Ohio by 6, unless like black turnout is through the roof and the suburbs just Donald Trump bombs in the suburbs. I think that the best for Kamala is like 7.5 victory for Donald Trump. Likely, I think that Kamala will keep it around R+8 because I think she does have some place she's gonna do better in the state. But I don't, if you factor that in, like you have Kamala, Donald Trump +6, uh, you have Sherrod Brown +2, you make that, Donald Trump +8, you're back to an even race for Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown. And I think the undecideds are going to break for for Bernie Moreno. Sherrod Brown has a path, like his lane is getting clearer and clearer. Like I definitely see the path for him, but you know how I am. Like I'm going to argue things with the data, the facts, and I don't have any significant evidence to back up for why I think Sherrod Brown is going to win this race. I don't like to be wrong. I go out of my way to be right. I've yet to be wrong once on this channel, and I'm not going to start being wrong today. So unless someone can provide all the facts as to why my argument is wrong, then I'm gonna stand on exactly what I said. Anyway, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. Make sure you have a nice day, you guys. Goodbye.